Do I have to introduce you? Maybe just very short class.
Maybe I'll say.
Talk about changing perception and through all the ages. Uma, we heard you before about participatory project. Annabelle Jackson, everybody who was there yesterday, we're talking about evaluation. Valdo, you were talking about actually in an interview setting. So Emma was asking you out about the classical scene and how you work with your festival there. And now we also have Jonas. He didn't know that he would be part of this. But you are a music educator, also researcher.
Yeah,
and we're gonna hear a talk and speak of you and your partner Roy later after lunch. So we're running a bit late, so I ask you, I know it's a big challenge, but can you give us all of you, can you give us a very short glimpse into one positive and one negative experience in the small subject of access, engagement and inclusion, okay? What comes to your mind from your experience?
I can start and do very short.
Thank you.
From my experience from both practice and research and also higher education in music education, I would say that during the past 10-15 years, interest and motivation to build more accessible and inclusive music environments has grown massively. So people are more aware, people want change. The negative thing, or let's say thing that requires more discussing and thought, is that inclusion is not about participation. It's not merely about participation. When we talk about inclusive practices, we tend to still do this, make this social distinction between people who include and who need to be included. And then the people who are included and that way marginalized, they are included in majority on the terms set by the majority. In real democratic inclusion, there is no division between those who include and aren't included. So I mean the include and who are included, there is no division. So the work is not ready yet.
Thank you so much.
The easiest answer is actually for me the negative example of inclusivity. It's basically that when you do a transformative project, there's transformation. And this can be great, but it also can be unpredictable and very difficult. In A Shoe Full of Stars, for example, I mean, this sometimes things are out of your control, but one of the participants totally transformed his life by making friends for the first time in his life in that school. He then, sadly, transgressed. He did something that was wrong in the social group, and then they shunned him. So he wouldn't have done that transgressive thing if he hadn't been in the social group, and he wouldn't have lost all of his friends if he hadn't made some friends. So it's kind of, there can be impacts to your work which are beyond your control, but are problematic, and there's a degree in which you have to consider, do I just leave the participant to suffer? What can we do? How can we manage risk? And then there is just the fact that then there are transformative experiences which can change your life. If I didn't know that he lost his friends, I would have just given you the evaluation that, he made friends for the first time in his life. It can be fantastic. But, so that's it.
So this is an area I work in directly. If I give you the positive example first. So this is just one illustration. I literally could have thought of hundreds. One illustration of working. So the Barbican in London has an approach in its way of working with schools, which is called associate schools, where it works with 3 schools over 3 years and aims to change everything in the school so that the whole culture moves towards the values that we are more used to in the arts. And one of the 3 schools it works with is a special school for people on the autism spectrum. They're people who are pre-verbal. And for the last 3 years, the Barbican has been running drumming workshops, which have dramatically changed the lives. So you have had non-verbal kids who are now holding whole conversations using the drumming. So they're picking up a beat and holding a beat and sharing a beat and leading a beat in a way that they can't lead a conversation. But the reason that I chose this is that it illustrates one of my good practice principles, which is reciprocity, which is the point of the Barbican doing this is also that they have worked incredibly closely with this school to transform the venue, and so that they now understand what it really means to be friendly and supportive and completely open and a wonderful venue. Luckily, the building is already very good for people on the autism spectrum, because that would be somewhat difficult, but that's always helped. And so that leads to the more challenging aspect, which is that 3 years ago I did a whole series of case studies of what you need to do to have a more inclusive audience. And this is written partly from a sense of venues, but other arts organisations as well. And that resulted in a book which is called Imagining Arts Organisations, Organisational Approach to New Audience Development. And so what the book is saying is that if you want to reach new audiences and reach them in exactly the terms that I totally agree, all you have to change is everything.
Wow.
No pressure.
Oh God, no stress. All right. I don't know what to say actually. So many brilliant people around. But yeah, for me, this whole idea of diversity, participation, interaction, inclusion. To be honest, I try not I try to do it and not too much think about it, because it should be kind of a natural thing to do. And for me, this actually in the Big Bang Festival, we have every festival has a project which we call a NOMA project, and it's a very simple thing. We invite a musician we like, and we bring him over and ask this musician to create something with a group of children. It's mainly children from who don't get access to the beautiful buildings we are doing this festival in. And so this artists, they travel and they go in neighborhoods, they meet the choir, they meet some people who don't know which kind of talent they have, and we use the skills of these musicians to get out of this children, young people, their talent. And what you see on stage is very often amazing. So yeah, there are so many projects we did in the meanwhile, like I remember Athens, where they worked with a group of mentally handicapped young people, and they made a rock band. And they were so powerful. I will never forget this experience. And afterwards, a lot of Big Bang partners said, "Is this a project for children?" But I think it doesn't matter to me. It worked, you know. It was really great concert, and also the children who were there were really kind of astonished by the power of this group. Also, many of you know him probably. Paul Griffiths is a fantastic musician from London. We had him so many times, and last year, the first festival in Rouen, in the Opera House in Rouen, he worked with a secondary school, two classes, very multicultural, whatever you would like to name it. These guys were crazy, but they didn't know their talent. And to see all these people on stage, on an opera stage, doing their thing, it's a life-changing experience. So that's why we focus very much on these projects as well, next to all the nice projects we produce and are awarded and stuff like that. But this is the heart of the thing. The negative. Negative. So sometimes I feel it's a bit forced. We are so much obliged to do this to get a grant you put in your applications that you do inclusion, and you do, and I feel okay, we write it, but of course we do this, and so to be forced to do this to get more money, it feels sometimes it feels bad to me because it should be a normal thing, it should be a natural thing, and that's what we are aiming for.
My thoughts are that in the last 4 years I've just made transition from being a high school teacher, music subjects only, and to getting into higher education. One of the first tasks I was thrown into was, can you start the community music program in Norway? Actually the first in Scandinavia, more or less. Okay, 14 days, start up, and it's been really a travel. Of course, a travel into the institutional life, but also a really, really interesting travel into a totally new culture. And I've been aware during the process that a lot of my values have been questioned on the way. And I'm not sure if I yet managed to kind of sort out when am I doing non-inclusive things, when am I actually doing the right inclusive things. Because it's so intertwined in practices that we're not aware of. So your question from yesterday, Annabelle, was the harsh questions, the
Provocative questions.
Yeah. To get them in the light, it's really been interesting to do that. I've of course been pushed also to get pupils, my students out in community and try to get them into the field as well, while I'm still learning myself. And I've seen their anxiety when they go into a room with very handicapped people, multi-handicapped, no language, with a lot of spasms and sitting strangely and can almost not shake right on that level. And afterwards they say it was a life-changing experience. See how much music means and what you can, so much compared to what you need to do good things with them. But your values have to be really straight. So one of the sad things I see here is that until now we've copied a lot of the culture from England, the community music culture. We've got Phil Mullen over, Dave Camlin, who are also one or two of the old people in the business over there. And sadly enough, in England, bachelor studies in community music have declined. I think there's just one left in Aberdeen. We visit them too as well.
It's called something else, so I think the term would be quite old-fashioned now.
Yeah.
And there are other ways in which people are learning, but it wouldn't really be called that anymore.
Exactly. So it's a term on the way out.
I think it's more that there are connotations attached to it, and it's more helpful to think of it all as participative practice, but also seeing participative practice as completely entwined with artistic practice now. There are major programs. There was a program called Artworks aimed at completely removing both the separation, but also the status. That if you're really clever, then you get to be a soloist in an orchestra, and if you're not quite so clever, you run some learning programs. And that we worked incredibly hard to completely demolish that. And I have some interesting work interviewing people who were in orchestras, saying that they are now composers, that are now more creative, because they're working with, we wouldn't call them the community in that sense anywhere, they're just working with other participants. They're working, and we call it co-creation now.
Yeah.
So it's changed enormously, but I hope that England has changed. As I said, I was part of the program called Artworks that aims to completely transform how the learning side was seen, and that it should be seen as artistically equal, and to understand the artistic skills of the people who are working in that department. So it can't be siloed into community arts. It's arts.
Absolutely. And but the strange thing is that in other countries it's like booming. It's starting up in Germany, it's starting up in New Zealand, it's starting up in Scandinavia and many other places. So now we hear, that's one of my questions, that almost every music program in England has some kind of module or course in participatory arts or music or something. course, something like that. And when you apply for symphony orchestra positions, you're asked as a violinist, what have you done? Have you been into communities? Have you worked with close to people? Because symphony orchestras have to do that. They get their funding also, and more demands are set to be out in the community. So it's asked for. I presume that time will reach us.
Yes, and it is partly an age thing. I worked with a huge orchestra project that was aimed at changing the whole culture of the orchestra. And some of the people refused to participate, and they just said, we are the best at what we do, we're not the best at working in a hospital, so we shouldn't do it. But the younger people, it wasn't the younger orchestra members who I interviewed, didn't think it, they just thought it was obvious that was what they were going to do.
I have a question now. Do you want to add something? Yeah, please, guys. It's not totally. It's okay. I'd like to share with you, sorry, I don't want to kind of like change, this is all very interesting, and I think we could have another panel on community music and participatory arts in general, because I think that what you just said, that the term is changing, which means that the whole field is developing, and actually the things are happening so that it's getting more and more entangled with other practices, different sectors, different organizations. But I have another thing that I have an urge to share with you. Please get it on. So I want to ask you, does this resonate, or do you find this in your own countries, in your own contexts, surprising or not surprising? But we ran a large survey in Arts Equal because we wanted to know who are the ones who use arts education services, the publicly funded, most kind of a free or low-cost services, and we found out that it's not surprising to me. It's the middle-class white families who are already artistically or culturally oriented. So they are the ones who use the services, which of course we came to a conclusion that it's not enough to add resources or to organize more free events. We must find ways how to reach the people who are left behind or who are excluded from these services and these events and hobbies. It's not only about geographical accessibility or physical accessibility. There are some invisible barriers that we within the system, we in the system who organize this, we don't necessarily see. We think that we're inclusive, but we are not ready to challenge the practices that we have, or the ways how we promote, or who we actually reach. And I think that is the problem. So I don't know, this is just, we weren't surprised. It just came reality, it's now like documented, but I guess it's the same trend in everywhere in Europe, or similar at least. And then if you have these disadvantaged programs for disadvantaged people, which is great, it's I know in UK, but you already marginalize the person coming to that program.
And we're saying they have to be integrated, it has to be not set. The learning department shouldn't have a lower status, it shouldn't really be separate, it should be part of the artistic
So they are treated as a problem, in a way.
Yes.
Not intentionally, but.
Yes.
Shall
Yeah, I mean, it's when you say that they're treated as a problem. We go to the schools in the disadvantaged communities, but there's no way to not do that because they are already geographically problematized. And if we don't go to them, they can't come to us.
Exactly.
So there's a risk factor in it. There's a reason why the orchestral members don't go out to the communities. They pay people to go out to communities rather than going themselves because they're not willing to take the risk to go into the communities. That there are complex factors at work, and I just wanted to add to the inclusion the matter of we had a university come in and do a questionnaire on Romeo's Passion. And one of the boxes that they put was male, female, and I thought, and then I thought, we're running short of time. I'll let it go because I imagine they've got more pressing problems. And our mediators came back and said, no, you have got to change it, and don't put Melvina other because you don't want to other them.
Yes.
And what we did, we found it was very much a contemporary issue for the young people, and many of them elected for non-binary or I can't remember what we put in the end, but it, you know, it was a grave mistake of mine to assume that just because they were below the poverty line, the issue of gender identity would not be relevant to them. That was,
So there are so many layers that we have to go on, right? But I have a question for you, and I think it's really great that there's so many educators and teachers, and you also have background in pedagogies, and LMS is totally there in this place. I think in this place that you can find a lot of kids. A lot of kids have access to this place. They go to school. So my question is, what is the potential of the place, school, for inclusion? And also, which potential has music education, subject music in that? Maybe Jonas, you want to say something on that?
Yeah, that's my first thought is that December I'm going into a PhD candidate run or period, and the subject is going to be to see connections between creativity and inclusion. So one of the theses is that when you get a good creative process, the kids also get included or include each other. It's like power hierarchies, they map down in a way for a second, and suddenly children don't usually speak together, find something to speak about. And the other way around as well, if you get to a really good inclusion, creativity processes is so much easier. So that's one of the things I want to explore.
And that's what the model I was referring to very briefly about, associate schools. So I have 4 clients who are going through associate school programs at the moment. One of them we've still got 2 years left, and it's in Northern Ireland. And the aim is to work in the absolute most deprived areas and work in projects that just happen to bring Catholics and Protestants together. We're not going to talk about it, but they're going to create plays and music together. And one of the plays which I heard this June was the younger people creating their own play to their parents, saying, we don't want your hatreds. And so it's being used very actively. But the aim of the programme is not just to reduce the troubles, because that isn't ambitious enough, but to transform the schools so that every lesson is taught through creative means. Because what the teachers are saying is that the kids are absolutely not engaged. They're actually falling asleep because they're on their phones too late. And so what they've seen in the creative projects is this shocking process where kids who look disengaged, and this is the kids who were chosen because they were the less engaged of the most deprived schools in the most deprived areas of Northern Ireland. And they're now poets and playwrights and stunning performers, and the schools are saying, maybe if you talk physics and maths like this, they might stay away. And that's the aim. And out of the 12 schools, one's already, the headmaster or mistress has already instructed the departmental heads that by the time they go back, which is now, that she wants plans for every single subject as to how they're now going to teach creatively part, if not all, of the syllabus. And the aim is to do it with all the rest.
I personally have an experience that the subject music is often like 2nd or 3rd rate. I don't know how it is in other countries, but in my home country it's like, okay, it's math, and then in my case German, and maybe English, then maybe geography and history, and then like being arts and music and maybe sports. So we have this challenge too. So we are now really inside, we're all musicians, producers, but there's an outside world, right? So how can we deal with that, and how did you experience this? Yeah, how are your thoughts on this, maybe?
Kind of related to this is an experience I've had. I'm really interested in what you were saying about the problem of inclusivity from certain perspectives. And to sum it up, basically, I'm mixed cultures, mixed race, Bangladeshi and British. So I have always been really focused on being multiple identities, multiple cultures. So I've always sought to engage different cultures, and particularly Bangladeshi communities. To my horror, they frequently do not want to be engaged by me, because I'm so Western, and the values are so different. So there's, in specific mosques, for example, I've walked into mosques saying, look, I'm here, I'm one of you, like, let's do something, let's work together. Music is not a value at all. No, really, no music, no, not allowed. At least explicitly. I tried to set up a multi choir once. Short example, short funny story. They said, "What do you sing?" And I said, "Do you know Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan?" And he went, no, we don't sing that song. No. And I was like, okay, that's very interesting. There's complex issues going on. But my point is that it requires a lot of bravery, I feel, to commit to going, okay, I know you don't want to do this. Let's find something to do. If it's just have a cup of tea, that's progress. We can definitely have a cup of tea. And from that, let's keep going, let's keep trying. And even if it's bumpy and people say, no, why do you even ask me this? How dare you? Which I've had. You just have to, I feel, although it feels painful when you're like, wow, you did something really wrong, my intention is pure. I know why I'm trying. And so I think we have to keep being brave and keep holding on to the idea that we will get it wrong. We definitely will get it wrong. We have to keep trying. Nevertheless.
And we have to learn from our mistakes, and that's what I mean with the problem of inclusion or paradox of inclusion, that it's a never-ending experiment. We will never be ready, but as you also mentioned, like your wonderful project in South Africa, that it's just that when we learn these lessons and we are self-critical, we must not forget that, and then we are in the process of true inclusion, which will never be achieved. There is no perfect world, but if we forget to be, like if we are too content what we do and we write in the application that this is inclusive, it's not going to work that way.
And of course, a really important part of this is evaluation, that we have to have powerful, brave, provocative questions that allow us to find out what they really think of our inclusive project.
I'm interested in the resources to do this question, because we're all stretched to the outer limits, and then realize, maybe we have these issues that we need to resolve in our participation and those kind of things. And in order to do it meaningfully, takes a hell of a lot of time. So have you had experiences on how to create shifts within your organization, within funders, those kind of things? Because in fact, you cannot do that alone in order to make that happen, at least in our experience thus far. So are there any examples, any tips you can give us on how to give that to any of the speakers?
Use evaluation.
Actually,
I have developed a tool specifically. It's actually not music, it's galleries. But galleries, I had a particularly serious problem that it was perfectly clear that some of the curators I worked with had absolutely no interest in other than what they called the audience, and the audience was other curators. And so I created a methodology. So it sounds like a focus group, and you have an audience panel that meets 6 times it, depending how many exhibitions you have. But the interesting thing is that they can ask the curator to attend and explain what they're doing, but that also every session is transcribed, so it's taped and then transcribed. And the idea is that people can either sit in, curators can, but the point is, what often happens with audience panels is that somebody attempts to capture the key points. And I don't know, I never capture the key points. I capture every word everyone ever says to me. I just naturally type it. And so the point is to hear the words that they use, the language that they use, the values that they use, and to hear it in their terms. And so it's literally, the aim is to take the voice of whichever group you decide to do your audience panel with and put it at the heart of the organisation. And I do have a toolkit for how to run a sort of provocative audience panel in that form, where the aim is subtly to get the voice of a group that's not being heard to the heart of the organisation, including in this case to the curator. So that's one way of doing it, and it has to be in their terms. It has to be the whole word. It has to be the whole language.
Go towards interprofessional collaboration. There is one project initiated under Arts and Equal. It's a project called Flora, where some music instrument teachers in music schools wanted to give opportunities for students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds who don't have access to our music schools because they are expensive, there are entrance exams and so on, and also these invisible social barriers that I mentioned earlier. And in this project, it was enabled by interprofessional collaboration between music teachers and child welfare and social healthcare. So they had contact to the families, and they could introduce the idea. Would you like to try this? And that was the way how they bridged the collaboration between these sectors. And then it becomes also an issue of funding. Because then there was a question of is this social and healthcare or education or culture? And guess what happened? They ended up having funding from all of the sectors because they were just persistent enough, and they started creating this kind of hybrid professional thinking that it doesn't matter which sector it belongs to. It's because it's important to these families and it's a successful program.
So we have to stop very soon, but I would like to invite you for one or two questions, or maybe sharing experience, please.
I haven't thought this through, so I might curse a bit. I'm sorry. So I might regret this question later, but anyway.
You should not.
I'm thinking about like invisible social barriers, and I kind of sense that we have the perspective of how do we make them be part of us instead of what do they want to do and how do we coach them to do that? Because I was thinking what you said about invisible social barriers versus choosing your own identity. And you mentioned Belfast, Northern Ireland. I lived in Belfast for some years, and as you all know, there was a lot of structural problems there for many years. I lived there around 2000, so it's just after the Good Friday Agreement. And what happened was, some parts of traditional Irish music, which turns out being, I know Catholics and Catholics, those Catholics, and they weren't allowed to play their own music, so they started their own music schools. Like they created a whole infrastructure, huge schools today, and they have like loads and loads of kids playing traditional Irish music. You couldn't do that at the music school. So, and also like there's many examples. There weren't any buses going down the problem areas, Catholic problem areas. So they created their own black taxi system and so on. So my question is, how do we? What do you think about? I don't have a question. I mean, like, how do we not like impose our values on them? How do we not choose their identities? It's a different thing of presenting like a smorgasbord. What word is it?
Yeah.
The table of courses and say, do you like any of this? I can help you.
Is there to find a solution in the participatory arts? Like, because it kind of what you said about how it started, then it was historically, right? And then education. So I'm your guidance, but I still tell you how it works. I give inputs, and yeah, maybe it was participatory arts.
Yeah, I for some reason the idea comes to me about relationship. Like the art is a tool, a manifestation of a relationship. The desire to be there with that person and ask them, what do you want? Is this really valuable? Is this good? No? Oh, what do you want to do? Those relationships are the most important thing, and also the hardest thing. The participatory art is easy once a relationship is created. So that's why I mentioned the tea. Like, I think you have to be so much more clever than just pitching a project. You have to turn up at people's houses, invite people around for dinner, make friends, actually, which is much harder not very professional, but I think it's the only way actually.
Is there time for?
Last one, I know Annabelle has to run like maybe already or.
I just wanted to respond to the question and say I often wonder what would have happened had Christoph Strelinski lived. Because he embarked on this project where he said, I'm going to build Bayreuth in Africa. And then he decided, I'm going to build an opera house in Ouagadougou. And then he went there and like laid a foundation stone. And then people in Ouagadougou said, yeah, you know what, we don't really want an opera house. We want a hospital and a school. And he said, okay, I'll build a hospital and a school. And he started building a hospital and a school and then dropped dead. And you know, I really wonder what would have become of that project, because that was an artist who really heard the people say, you know, fuck off, we don't want Bayreuth here. We want a hospital and a school. And
Yeah.
it was an interesting response.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Tuulikki. Thank you. And have a happy good lunch. Thank you, guys. Thank you.